You are now listening to the Lunch and Learn with Dr. Barry. This is episode number 11.
Thanks for listening to the Lunch and Learn with Dr. Barry, here to help educate, motivate, and put you on the right path to take control of your health through weekly discussions on topics in the medical field, public health arena, and in your community. And now your host, Dr. Barry.
Welcome to the Lunch and Learn. Today, we are going to be talking about why getting your life together starts with getting your mental health in order. And as always, if you want today's show notes, please go to drpierresblog.com/LLP011. Again, if you want the show notes today, please go to drpierresblog.com/LLP011. Now, today's episode is an important one. I can tell you I do have some bias, as my wife is actually a licensed mental health counselor working on her PhD in family and marriage therapy. So mental health has definitely been something that I've had to incorporate in my practice and in my patient care on a daily basis. And I could tell you, honestly, it's made me a better physician for it. So today I'm going to be talking about troubling issues with mental health in this country. I'm going to be talking about some of the barriers of access to mental health care, who is affected, and a scary number, how many people commit suicide every year. And this episode is dedicated to Mental Health Awareness Month. So I wanted to make sure that, again, that bias I talked about earlier with my wife being a mental health therapist in the family, that I definitely wanted to touch on mental health and give its just due. So get ready for another great episode. Perfect opportunity to talk about mental health. Of course, I'm a big fan of the mental health, and this is National, it's a Mental Health Awareness Month. I think was the full title. So we're definitely excited about talking about mental health, especially from the primary care aspect of it. Hey, Maria, thank you for joining. Sharonda, thank you for joining. There's your 50 records. Oh, nice. This looks like Facebook is telling me this is actually the 50th time I went and did a Facebook Live. So excited about that. Shout out to Dr. Dre for that. Because like I said, if it wasn't him, I wouldn't do any Facebook Lives. So shout out to Dr. Dre for getting me to my 50th. But this is the 37th episode of the Lunch and Learn. We're talking about mental health, and we're talking about mental health, especially in the primary care office. We're talking about mental health in the public health aspect of it, and then just in general, like why do I feel personally mental health is an issue that we need to address quite fully. For one, is we're not doing a good enough job. That's just for the first part. We're just not doing enough job taking care of it right in the first place, right? I am a primary care physician. I think I see patients with a lot of different issues, ranging from, your common cold complaints, your common diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol. But I see quite a number. Hey, Marie, thank you for joining. I see quite a number of people who are here. For mental health issues, whether that be they're depressed, whether they be they're anxious, whether they be just stressed in general, just kind of piling along because of life, life in general. So I see a lot of issues that kind of add on to it. And I think, we deal with diabetes, we deal with blood pressure, we talk about it all the time. We talk about stuff like cancer, we talk about all of these diseases. But when we speak about mental health, because it's not something we can physically see or physically, do like a blood test on to see, we put it to the wayside. And that's something that, unfortunately, has been a detriment to our care. And there's a lot of reasons why, we don't get the mental health care that we get. Sorry, still dealing with this bronchitis. For first and foremost, we don't make it a central issue, right? Like I said, this month of May, we're going to talk a lot about mental health awareness in general. You're going to see a lot of people talk about, what's up, Jose? Thank you for joining. You're going to see a lot of people talk about mental health, but once May comes around, they're gonna be done, right? Like, it's like, all right, we talked about mental health, we got all our graphics out the way, we got all our blog posts out the way, we did our videos, and then it's just gonna be done, right? And then we're gonna have to wait till next year to make mental health like a key issue. And just like most of the issues I talk about, is probably something that we should be doing 12 months out the year. But unfortunately, because of the way we do things, especially in medicine, we're so centrally focused. Mental health kind of gets pushed back on the wayside. Big thing, funding, right? Funding is a big issue too, right? Because again, it's difficult to take care of patients, who have mental health issues. And again, there's a lot of mental health issues to discuss if you don't have the funds to take care of it. So, if I don't have the funds to take care of the workers and, get those workers those proper equipment that they need, the proper support that those patients need, it's going to be falling by the wayside. So, again, that's funding, and funding is an issue for a lot of our diseases, is a concern. Hey, man, thank you for joining for us, right? This was actually telling, right? The lack, and a lot of these facts I'm getting actually from WHO, which is like the World Health Organization, and especially dealing with mental health. The lack of mental health care integration with primary care. Now, I've talked about it on past episodes and before, where primary care has gotten has gotten to this day and age where they're trying to get you in and out as soon as possible. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever that time frame may be. A lot of times, a lot of their patients aren't even getting to the point where they can even approach their physician and talk about like their mental health. And when I talk about stress, when I talk about anxiety, all these other things, like they're not even getting to that point because by the time they're going to see him, they got to pay a copay, and they got like 10 different issues that they want to kind of get squeezed into that appointment, and mental health sometimes falls on the wayside. So that's a big issue, right? Trying to make a much more concerted effort to get primary care physicians like myself to ask these questions, and to get patients comfortable with asking their doctors questions, because I think a lot of times a lot of questions I always get is and we're going to talk about all of the excuses that people don't get their mental health care, but a lot of times people don't even realize they can talk to their primary care physician. They think their primary care physician is, to take care of their back pain, take care of their diabetes, and they don't even really approach their doctor in that sense. And I think a lot of that just has to do with the relationship. To open up and talk about mental health with a quote unquote stranger, which your doctor usually is, especially in the beginning, you really have to trust this person, that this person is going to be doing everything in your best interest. And two, that you're going to get a positive result out of it, right? Because contrary to popular belief, not everybody wants to be on medications for anxiety medications for I got a lot of patients who refuse, they're like, no, I'm not doing it, I don't want to do it, I don't care. And that stops progress too. And not saying that all of these your mental health issues need medication, but there's something there to do, right? Like I said, there's not much talking in the world that's going to get a person who's possibly bipolar to be less bipolar, right? There's not much talking in the world to get a person who maybe hallucinated because they're schizophrenic. There's not that much counseling in the world that's going to change that, right? Sometimes you need medications. Same thing with depression. Same thing with anxiety, PTSD, like the substance abuse. All these are all of these fall under the mental health, emotional instability, right? Like if you have a very bad temperament, you hear some people talk about I have anger issues. That's a mental health problem, right? So a lot of that comes into play, unfortunately, in the bad end, right? You have a person that has anger issues, and unfortunately they end up getting in trouble from a legal standpoint, or something even worse, right, because of their anger issues from that standpoint. So it's definitely something that we definitely have to kind of put it out there and open. We have to make talking about our mental health issues just as common as it is when you come to see your doctor for that antibiotic, right? You should be able to be as open when you say, hey, I got depression, just like you say, hey, I got this cough that I've been dealing with for 5 days, right? Because once we get to that barrier, once we get to that level of ease, that's where progress gets made, right? And I can tell you, especially a personal story, right? We from a physician, right? As a physician, we do all this training to discuss all of these diseases. We do all this training to be able to kind of handle all of this stress, right? But a lot of physicians really have trouble dealing with the amount of stress that their patients bring to them. Right? A lot of physicians, not only they're dealing with the stress from their own financial burdens, they're dealing, loans out the wazoo these days. They're dealing with the stress of, having to be perfect, and that's probably something I think I probably will write about that sometime soon, right? Probably sometime this month I'm going to write about the chase of perfection, right? new title. I'm just throwing it out there. And I'll talk about how like doctors, they own, especially in this day and age where, you know, every time you turn on the TV, turn on the radio, someone is giving you a number to call to sue somebody else, right? So doctors understand that we've got one of the few jobs right in the world that you have to be perfect 100% of the time or risk someone suing you because you're not 100%. Like, so again, like, so imagine that, right? Imagine like you go into a job knowing that if you make a mistake, there's a possibility that one, someone can get hurt, someone can die, and then two, three, someone can turn around and sue you for it, right? So that's a lot of pressure, right? So that's why they do the things they do, and they order all the tests they order. But like I said, we'll talk about that at a later time. So, you know, that's where we're kind of at now, right? And mental health, you know, it's not like this is some, you know, random thing that only a few people get it. Like I posted a couple articles recently, and it talked about 1 in 5 Americans, right? And they really target Americans because in America we have a lot of like stress, right? We put a lot of stress on ourselves for a lot of reasons, but we put a lot of stress on ourselves, right? Like 1 in 5 Americans, right, in their lifetime will have some type of mental health issue, right? I think what was the 1 in 10 young people, right? This is my young kids, my teens, and everything, will suffer from depression. And 1 in 15 Americans will have like some type of severe, like serious mental illness, right? So this isn't like an uncommon thing that, you know, you may run into, right? Like I said, I probably see, especially from a mental health standpoint in my office, I probably see maybe like 20-30% has some mental issue one way or the other. So that's a lot, right? So that's, you know, so it's not like this is like some figment of imagination. You got people who are really struggling. You got people who are really, just for trying to really make it day by day. And there's no caveat on whether a person happens to be poor or rich, white or black. You know, there's stressors come in like different ways and fashion, but you know, a lot of people are suffering from it, right? So this is why, you know, they do the things they do with like a month like this, right? Mental health month, right? Because they want to make it known out there, like, hey, like, you know, we're out here. You know, we want to make it as a synonymous, like when you see Susan G. Komen and you're thinking about breast cancer, kind of in that same light where, you know, the seriousness of it is something that we can't take for granted, right? Recent numbers have about 800,000 people like a year committing suicide due to some mental health issue one way or the other, right? 800,000 people. It's gotten so bad, especially from the physician standpoint. I think the study was that one class size a year, right? One class size, medical school class size a year. And I forget what the number was because I went to Nova. So our class size was like 200. So I'm not sure what, it probably was in maybe like the low 100s, I'm assuming. But one class size a year commits suicide, physicians, right? So again, these are people who did the rigors of, you know, wanted to be a doctor since they grew up, did the rigors of pre-medical school, and they got to medical school. They were almost at that finish line, but it's something happened, like something, and this happened in between medical school and then being a physician. Something happened where they just committed suicide, right? Like, because they couldn't take no more, because the mental pressure in and of itself was too great for them. And I think that's where we really have to be very mindful of, right? We have to be very mindful that your mental health issue can weigh on you just as much as you being a diabetic, just as much as you having bad back pain, just as much as you having, you know, terrible high blood pressure, like just as much as you having those like diseases that we know and think about, all cancer, like just as much as we know about those, we have to understand that the mental aspect of it is just as severe. It can be just as detrimental, right? So, you know, and that's where we really have to, you know, as a physician and as patients together, we really have to kind of come together and, you know, make change in that positive direction, right? I say I'm on like I'm on a few social media outlets. I'm on Twitter and a couple other things, and I see all the time people talking and people tweeting and, you know, people putting Facebook statuses up, and I could just tell that, oh wow, this person is depressed. Like this, you know, this is nothing but like depression screaming out. This is a person who's anxious. This is a person who has substance abuse. Like, you know, they're tweeting out, like, especially with social media in this day and age, where you know, unfortunately, people are taking like this Facebook Live thing, and they're committing suicide on Facebook Live. They're committing heinous acts on Facebook Live because the mental aspect of it is so great. And a lot of times, some of those same people, they go and they try to get some help, especially towards the end. They try to get some help. They try to reach out to family members. They try to reach out to someone, and they just can't find it. They can't find that open hand willing to kind of assist them. So what are the things I always hear about? I always hear, well, it's too expensive, right? I don't want to see counseling. And I could tell you, like, I'm in Palm Beach County, but like for the majority part, if you like Google your county and low cost mental health services, there's always some organization, some nonprofit organization who has doctors, counselors, licensed therapists there who are just waiting to give their gift of teaching and counseling, and they can't find any. So I like, especially in my office, like, first thing I say is, like, I don't care what your insurance is. Here's a list of agencies in Palm Beach County that you can go to and talk to. And some of, especially in Palm Beach County, they'll even tell you if it's free or not. They'll tell you low cost. They'll break it down to what type of therapy services they provide. So this is definitely something that, and again, I know I'm biased because I'm in Palm Beach County, so I don't know of how every county is, but like there's definitely a lot of support out there if you start looking, and we really have to start looking for it, right? We really have to start really trying to be mindful of our friends. We have to be mindful of our family members who we know just isn't all the way there, just isn't fully to the point where you want them to be. Like, something's kind of off with them. And we have to and understand, I think I talked about this, those people aren't going to turn around and reach their hand out, right? You sometimes have to go after them. You have to go after them and say, hey, is everything okay? Is everything all right? Is there something I can do for you? And majority of the time, the first couple of times, they're going to say no. But if you keep showing that, like, hey, I'm not going nowhere until you tell me what's wrong, eventually they'll want to talk to you, right? And eventually you'll get them to where you need them to be. And I think that's where we have to get to now, right? If we don't do anything, right? If we don't do anything, like, I would love that, by the end of this month, end of this year, whatever, end of this video, you reach out and you really start looking at your friends and family members and consoling them and letting them know that you can be the support that they want. And really, and especially if maybe I'm talking directly to you, right? Maybe you're feeling a lot of pressure from work, a lot of pressure from school, a lot of pressure in your relationship. Maybe that's you, right? So maybe you need to get some help and you just don't know how. That's what plenty of people, again, that's what especially in this day and age from an online standpoint, where you can just kind of Google and kind of get to where you get to. Like, I'm a fan of, I'm not an enemy of Dr. Google. I like Dr. Google, especially when it's used correctly. And this is one of the perfect times to use it. When you need help, when you need assistance, reach out and try to just find some way to get some solace, right? Because again, 800,000 people a year dying because they couldn't get the help they need in time is too much. It just is, right? Depression is too much. Anxiety is too much, right? PTSD too much. Bipolar, like, all of these issues are too much, and we have too many support systems out there that are willing to reach out and say, hey, I want to help you, for us to try to ignore it. So that's my 2 cents for today.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Lunch and Learn with Dr. Barry. If you want to find out more about the episode, please go to www.lunchlearnpod.com. That's www.lunchlearnpod.com for the show notes and any links that may have been mentioned in today's episode. If you're interested in joining the Lunch Learn Pod community, head over to either the website lunchlearnpod.com or join us on Facebook and Twitter with the same username, Lunch Learn Pod. And again, you can find all of these links on the website. If you have any questions, any comments, or any requests for topics to debut on the show, please let that be known. And don't forget to use the hashtag LunchLearnPod when you're listening to the episode. Again, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to today's episode, and I'll see you next week.